This is the SKA CAST, welcoming the father and son combo of Kim Pop's Horn and Korey Kingston of Shuffle and Bang. What up, everybody? Today we're talking to Shuffle and Bang. They're talking to us about their newest album, Island Bop. It's their debut LP as a group. And I gotta say, this album is really, really fantastic. And it's honestly something I would recommend for anybody that's just a fan of good music. You can go ahead and pre-order the album now at shuffleandbang.com or KoreyKingston.com/merch, or on the Pirates Press Records official website as well. Shout out to Pirates Press Records. Let's go ahead and catch up with drummer Korey Kingston and lead singer Kim Pop's Horn.
Hello.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
How you doing?
I appreciate you guys making the time for this, by the way.
Yeah, no, cool.
Before we jump into the album, if I can get maybe a little bit of backstory into both of your guys' experience as musicians. I understand you're a jazz singer, right, Kim?
Yes, sir.
Did you always start off singing jazz? Did you start off as a singer?
Or I hated jazz. I grew up as an R&B, funk singer, funk bands, and like that.
Heavy metal singer.
Well, and heavy metal.
Believe it or not.
My father was a singer, and he would sing to me and my siblings when we were kids.
Right.
So that's how I got into, when he passed away, I got into jazz as a tribute to him.
Okay, so your dad was the one primarily doing like the jazz singing, and you got into it a little after?
Yeah, he would sing songs to us as kids, and we had 78 records, which is probably way before your time, but these were records from the 40s and 30s, 40s and beyond, the 20s, where they were really fast speed, and he would sing along with them, and it sounded like him, but it ended up being another famous singer. But we just, as kids, would always say, Dad, sing to us, and he would sing to us. And so I wanted to be like my dad and sing, and so I just loved singing. I was always singing since I was 2-3 years old, they said.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask, was there a particular like subset of jazz that you guys indulged in? You know how there's the different styles.
It's weird. I love all styles of jazz, but singing wise, I like the old classic standards, the Nat King Cole's, and that's what my dad listened to. And so I guess as a kid, not realizing that was something that was embedded in my mind, I started to listen to it after he had died. But the story goes, my wife I was doing a gig with my funk band. Right. And I don't know, the guys knew this one song. One of the guys did, the piano player. And so we just practiced it once. And so I did it as a little tribute to my sisters who were there. And they were crying and my wife was crying. My dad had probably died been dead about maybe a couple years. And I remember my wife saying, "Hey, you need to start doing that kind of music. I really like it." And I'm like, "Oh, that's my dad's music. It ain't my music." Right. And so, but as time went on, I really got into it, met some great musicians, and started working with different artists and different musicians. And the rest is history. I just got into it and kind of like a plow going down a street, I kept wanting to do that style of music and was getting the doors closed on me. Nobody was, they were saying it's too old, or, come on, man, get into the smooth jazz, or get into this, get into that. And, I did. I liked the Al Jarreaus and some of the great jazz singers and also the Luther Vandrosses and like that. But I just love the old, classic, Frank Sinatra's and Dean Martin's and, Sammy Davis and those guys. I just love that music.
I think as a band, that's my dad's influence, the classic jazz, especially like the crooner style love songs, all that stuff. But as a band, we're big fans of bebop jazz, big fans of Latin jazz like salsa and boogaloo, 70s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
New York style jazz and all that stuff. So
yeah, that's very transparent in the album too, because like even the records that you were just referencing, one thing that is like super stand out, you know, as soon as you put them down, like on you know, once you put the needle down on the wax, is the warmth of those tones that they're using is kind of unmatched. And when I listen to Island Bop, you guys hit that like right up, like, you know,
that's great.
As the phrase goes, you guys hit the nail on the head, you know.
Oh, great.
Thank you, man. That's what we're going for.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever got into that group, Weather Report. That's my
of course, man.
Yeah, that's my favorite jazz group right there.
Weather Report.
Joe Zawinul.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. Luckily, I live around the corner from a record store that has a gang of jazz records for sale, and they sell them at very, very reasonable prices. And so there's just like giant sections of Thelonious Monk and Weather Report, just everything. Yeah, but yeah, it's great.
I have quite a few Weather Report records.
When you started playing drums, Korey, I understand you started off self-taught, but you didn't immediately start off playing professionally in ska or reggae. You started doing like blues and kind of like Western country music. Yeah,
believe it or not, a lot of people don't know that, and I don't really say that to everybody, but yeah, it is something that you know, I'm like, my story is kind of like everybody else. Every other drummer, I started when I was really young, 2 or 3 years old, started playing drums because my dad was in a band, and his drummer would leave the drums at the house, and so I don't really remember a time where I had to, you know, learn how to do this or like take lessons on how to do this. It's just something that happened, you know. I just played drums, and so basically professionally I started with you know, where I was just playing in a punk band or a ska band, or you know, just me and my buddies just kind of jamming out and playing together, and then I started kind of getting to where I could play. And so I think my dad recommended me to a buddy that was looking for a drummer, and he was a country western artist.
He thought it was a joke. He said, "I need a drummer." And I says, "Okay, I know one." And he goes, "Yeah, man, I need a drummer really bad." And I says, "Okay, I know one." And so he comes over to the house one night and he says, "Hey, did you find me a drummer?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "Where? Who?" And I pointed to Korey, and Korey looked at me, and
I was like 14 years old.
Yeah, he looked at me, and the guy looked. He said, "No, I'm serious." I said, "No, I'm serious. This is your drummer."
Yeah. And so I had to kind of, being a young kid, I had to kind of stand, or I had to play my set, and then I would have to go outside, and I couldn't be in the bar or anything like that. So my dad had to go to every gig with me, and they would always think they're like, "Okay, so you're the drummer, you're going to be set up right here." And he's like, "No, he's the drummer," you know? And I'm like, they're looking at me like, "You got to be kidding me."
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's kind of how it started. And, you know, I've probably heard in other interviews or whatever that I hated it. I didn't want to play country music at all. It wasn't the music I was into. But it was a paid gig, you know. It was either that or, I don't know, deliver pizzas or something, and you know, or work at McDonald's or something. And that's what like a lot of my friends were doing, you know, or working like in the hills doing farming or something. And so, you know, I just tried to ride it out and like just treat it like a job, and yeah, the rest is history. Then I got to start playing the music I like, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I don't blame you. I mean, you know, delivering pizzas or playing drums, you know what I'm saying? At 14, you know, like, well, you know, I would rather, you know, my first jobs as well have been music, you know? So, yeah, I mean, that's cool, you know, because, you know, I never really got into playing that style, but I remember at some point at the community college out here, it was called Beginning Rock Band is what the class was called. And I played bass for that class, and a certain lady in there brought in some country songs to play, and everybody in the class was trying to like cool guy her. And so I was just like, nah, let's just help her out, because she's being really positive, you know, when she was presenting them and stuff. So I'm like, yo, let's just hop on her songs. And actually, I actually learned that music is actually pretty nice when you know, the right light.
Absolutely, man. I had to, you know, I started kind of growing. It started growing on me where it's from a drummer's perspective. This is really disciplined music, and the musicians that they would use, you know, when they originally recorded these old traditional country songs or, you know, recordings, they were using jazz musicians, or these musicians were as disciplined as jazz musicians. And that music It is. It's everybody thinks it's simple and it's, you know, it doesn't take any talent or whatever to do these songs. They hear the twang in the voice or something. I don't know, but this is it was a really challenging gig, and it was like kind of like being thrown in the fire where you have to learn, or jumping in the deep end. You know, you have to swim or you have to drown. You know, sink or swim. And so I was kind of forced. It really showed me how to be disciplined and not overplay, to refrain from doing what I want to do, you know, crazy giant drum fills and stuff, and doing, you know, what fits the music. And it's kind of the same concept that I've tried to carry over into ska and reggae. There's a style to this. This is traditional music. There's a style to play it correctly. And if you know, I can play the beat correctly, but then if I want to do some big double bass drum fill or something, it's just not going to work. And a lot of the ska drum fills and stuff, you know, if you write them out on sheet music, they're simple, you know, rudiment drum fills or whatever. But, you know, so it's kind of the same idea where you have to play it correctly and play it right and be disciplined on making sure you're playing the music authentic and doing justice to the music, you know?
Yeah, because right now you mentioned sheet music. Did you get into reading sheet music? Like, did you guys do that together as a family, or did you get into it like maybe like in school? Were you doing it like school something or?
No. So after the country band and all that stuff, I started trying to get a little bit more serious with drumming. So I started taking lessons, and I had a teacher that was a really, really great drummer. His name is Art Rodriguez. He has really great musician kids now that are fantastic musicians, but so he started showing me how to read, and then he started showing me the fundamentals of drumming, and then I started then I joined the jazz band at school, and you know, and then it was like from then I kind of had a foundation on fundamentals and stuff like that. And then throughout the years, I've taken lessons from all kinds of different drummers. Evan Stone, Gil Sharon, a bunch of different people here and there that have either just showed me a few things, coached me along, or just really sat down and paid for a drum lesson, you know. Gotcha. And then playing in bands like back in the day it was Full Spectrum. Now it's Western Standard Time, or you know, in shuffle and bang sometimes too. That the Western Standard Time gig, I have to read charts. Yeah, those are full big band charts, and so, and then as a teacher now I use sheet music every day in drum lessons. So it's something that is kind of I've had to get some training on, and then some I've had to figure out on my own, and some I've just had to use it, you know, to kind of, you know, like, again, get thrown in the deep end. You're in Western Standard Time is a perfect example where I'm playing with, like, I'm a big fan of Jump with Joey, and Joey Altruda was in that band at the beginning, and, you know, one of my favorite songs of all time, you know, and a lot of influence on this Island Bop record. But anyways, yeah, being in the studio and recording an album with a 20-piece orchestra and them not knowing whether I'm a good reader or not, it's like I kind of have to sink or swim, you know. So yeah, that's one of those situations where, you know, it's just, you got to do the best you can, and so that's how I got to reading charts and stuff like that, and yeah, using it in those areas.
Most definitely. Kim, I was going to ask you, did you develop your vocal technique like throughout your heavy metal days and applied it to the jazz singing that you eventually moved into, or how was that journey for you?
Well, actually, I was singing R&B and like that originally. Yeah. And got into heavy metal. It's a crazy story, but we had this kind of a George Benson-y jazz group, and I was probably about 20 years old, and we needed a lead guitarist. Our guitarist was a great rhythm guitarist, but we needed a lead guitarist. And I was at a gig with this girl, and I was singing with her, and she had this guitar player who was playing acoustic guitar, and he told me, he was from Jamaica, and he says, man, I like, you know, heavy metal, it was called hard rock then, it wasn't called heavy metal. Gotcha. And I says, oh man, I love Led Zeppelin, I love rock, you know, Jimi Hendrix, those were my two favorite artists or bands. And so he says, yeah, I play that. So, okay, if you ever do, call me. And so my wife and I had just had Korey, and we had moved on the street in a city called Cypress, and my next door neighbors had a studio, or what was a garage they converted to a studio, which was right next to his bedroom. Mm-hmm. And she would get mad. She goes, those guys, don't they realize we have a